There's an old proverb that says, "Tell me a fact and I'll learn. Tell me the truth and I'll believe. But tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever." Stories have been a part of every civilization from the beginning of time. And if they're powerful enough to live on for this long, then they're certainly powerful enough to use for learning. So stay tuned to Crafting Your Story. In this video, we're going to explore the power of stories in learning, the 5 key elements of effective stories, and the criteria for helping you choose the right story for your session. We'll also give you some tips on where to find them. You see, stories are a wonder because they excite the imagination and they capture an audience's attention. They're not for the head as much as they are for the heart. They don't primarily explain, they motivate through a person's emotions. You don't believe me in their power? Then think about stories that you've heard that impacted your life. There are 5 key elements to effective stories. In general, successful stories have a specific structure that makes them memorable. Let's explore what this structure is. Number 1, they have a point. Without a point or takeaway message, the story just becomes spoken words with no meaning. Entertainment, but no learning. You want your listeners to think, to feel, or to act differently as a result of your story. Number 2, an emotional draw. Stories remind your listeners of similar relatable experiences. Emotions draw the listener in and makes them want to continue to listen. Number 3, they have character or characters. In an effective story has a main character or a hero. We call them a protagonist. Some also have supporting characters, including villains. We call them antagonists. When the characters come to life, the listeners find themselves relating to one of them. And then 4, a dilemma. Really effective stories have a dilemma, a problem, or a conflict that needs to be solved, worked out in some way. The dilemma in your story is what makes the listener ask or wonder, what will happen next? It creates drama. Number 5, a resolution. As a story progresses, it shows what the main character goes through to overcome the dilemma or the conflict. It's through this process where the main character transforms or changes as a result of the dilemma or the conflict. Now let me show you how all of this comes together in one of my very favorite stories of all time. One day, one of Socrates' students came to him and asked him, "Master, what is the secret to finding knowledge?" Socrates replied, "Do you really want to know?" "Yes," replied the student. So Socrates led him to a raging river and he said, "If you really want to know the secret of finding knowledge, then jump in." The student looked at him and hesitated, eyes wide open. And when he did, Socrates pushed him in the river, and then he jumped in right after him. And when the young man finally came up for air, Socrates pushed him back down again below the surface. He did this every time the young man came to the surface to catch his breath. Finally, Socrates pulled the young student out of the water and laid him on the bank of the river. When the young man finally came to and caught his breath, he cried, "Why, master? Why did you do that to me?" Socrates just simply asked him, "When you were under the water, what did you want more than anything else in the world?" "Air," replied the student. "I wanted air." Well, Socrates looked at him and he said, "When you want knowledge as much as you wanted air, then you shall find it." I tell that story at every facilitator boot camp that I conduct. It sets up the expectations that the participants will get something out of the sessions if they really want to. Now, talk about selecting the right story. You see, not every story makes a good complement for your content. To be effective in your sessions, much like with illustrations, they need to be short. Keep your stories as short as possible while still conveying all of the main point. The longer they are, the more likely the listeners are going to lose interest and they're going to disengage. Next, they need to be relevant. It should fit within the material or the topic covered. Otherwise, there's no meaning. Number 3, universal. They need to be easily understood by your audience, which, just like illustrations we talked about, could be from different ages, genders, and backgrounds. And with stories, it also helps, but it's not critical, if they are personal, which means meaningful to you as the teller, and teachable, which I say makes it easy to deliver them. Which, by the way, is another topic that we have a short video on as well. It's called Delivering Stories Effectively. It's well worth your time to go and to listen to that. Now, where do you find them? Stories are everywhere. Now that you're aware of them and what they do, they're going to start making themselves known to you. From your personal experiences, the movies you watch, the books you read, newspapers, magazines, the internet. And also, you can subscribe to services that have stories, little books. Now, here's the best tip that I can give anyone who wants to become a master story creator. Keep a journal and record them. When you hear one of those stories or you think of one, write it down. Or even when you just think of ideas for developing one, write it down. You'll soon develop a repository of stories, just like with illustrations, that will serve you for the rest of your life. Another tool in your toolbox for facilitators. Well, there you have it. In this video, we explored the power of effective stories, the 5 key elements of effective stories, the criteria for selecting them, and places where you could find them. Remember to journal, though. It'll soon become your facilitator repository. Oh, we hope you've enjoyed this video session as much as we have in making it. Don't forget to download the resources associated with this video, as well as the job aids. And make sure you complete the activities. They're designed to help you put your newfound knowledge into action. Well, we look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, good luck and happy story hunting.